Since I've been in post, and I've been in post 2 years now, and right from the beginning, black and ethnic minority colleagues have been saying to me, Karen, does the URC actually understand? Does the URC know what we go through?
And the fact that we are impacted by it, it means that something exists, right? And that something is racism.
If you have an image of a black Jesus, it's something that somebody will no, that's not Jesus. Jesus should be white, should be perfect, should be like those images of a perfect Jesus that we see all the time. And that might not strike the right chords to a black person who has not seen any good from white people who are oppressing them.
My name is Lindsey. I'm a member of the United Reformed Church here in the UK. Like many of you watching, I never considered myself racist. As a trainee teacher 30 years ago, I was taught to be colourblind in the classroom. But that approach failed to acknowledge that society isn't colourblind. Our institutions aren't colourblind. Our church isn't colourblind. When this anti-racist conversation began in the United Reformed Church in around 2018, I, like many of you, wasn't aware of the need for it. I hadn't heard the need. I hadn't seen the need. And that's because I wasn't listening to the voices that were crying out for it.
Since I've been in post, and I've been in post 2 years now, and right from the beginning, black and ethnic minority colleagues have been saying to me, Karen, does the URC actually understand? Does the URC know what we go through?
Karen Campbell is Secretary for Global and Intercultural Ministries. Her love for poetry is a source of inspiration on her journey towards racial justice in the UK.
Because they've been sharing their experiences with me, sometimes often really painful experiences. And I say the URC, I don't think the URC does know, because we pride ourselves on being open, on being inclusive, on embracing everyone. But that doesn't necessarily reflect people's lived experiences.
I was talking to somebody in my community that I work now about the footballers, kneeling down against racism in football.
England's players were racially abused during their 4-0 win over Hungary in European World Cup qualifying at the Puskás Arena. Monkey chants were aimed at players on different occasions.
Andrew Mudharara serves as a URC minister in the Midlands and finds evidence of racism not only in government policies but also in church life here in the UK.
And I was so surprised to think that somebody's complaining about people challenging injustice and racism. But this is a thing that I live with each and every day of my life. It's almost like normal for me to hear, walking in the park even now, hearing teenagers, especially on a Saturday, making monkey sounds when I'm passing.
Well, it's a facet of white supremacy. It's something that it can be very insidious in the UK. And another way is very obvious as well, because I think people like to ignore it. So they will brush it off as a joke or say, I didn't mean it like that, or I'm not one of those. But they'll end up making very ignorant comments. And if you call it out because of, keeping this stiff upper lip, you as a black person or as a person of colour would feel that you are wrong for calling out and, kind of mess with the vibes of the room that you're in, especially when you move into more white spaces, as you find you have to do as you progress in your professional educational career.
Philippa, like many young black people in the UK, is deeply aware of how unequal society really is.
Now it's clear to me we miscommunicated. You equivocated. You've already moved on, I'm alone and so damn jaded.
I was approached by a kind of random man to ask about the Black Lives Matter movement and whether my friend and I agreed with it. I, as a singular person, am not the representative of Black Lives Matter as an organisation or as a movement. Neither am I the representative of black people in general. It was a very odd experience, and I left feeling exhausted and drained, and like the rest of the day was kind of ruined because of that experience. I think he also mentioned that he, as a white working class man, experienced more discrimination from middle class white people than I did as a black woman who also comes from a working class background, because we achieved some sort of privilege on the virtue of us being a token black person in a white middle class space. And eventually just had to end the conversation because it was exhausting and just wanted it to end.
Like many of you, I am mortified by what I've learned over the last 2 to 3 years. The church has too often disregarded the voices crying out in the desert.
I'm a Christian, and I don't believe it's right for someone to steal. I'm a man.
It will be maybe lying to ourselves and working very hard to believe our lie that it's not existing. I think we all know that racism is a creature that has been there for a very long time, and it's going to take a lot of effort, like we are doing as a denomination, to root it out. But it is there, and it manifests itself in many different ways that are very subtle, but it is very noticeable to the recipient.
But they don't want me, or nobody like me.
Wilbert Sayimani was the first black clerk of assembly in the Uniting Presbyterian Church in southern Africa. He went on to serve as moderator of the Presbytery of Zimbabwe.
So I take
One of the benefits of having served in a global South partner denomination is the wider perspective it offers.
from those who can't afford to lose their necklaces and rings.
Wilbert is deeply aware of the racial imbalances in the URC structures.
I just look my options through.
Wilbert wants to see the URC embark on a determined process of affirmative action by which black members are appointed to leadership, taking into account a long history of white privilege.
Well, having come from a very different context into this one, that is predominantly white, it is obvious that we would find the structures very white as such. But being a church that's actually singing a song of wanting to prove to the world that racism is not there, or we don't tolerate or accept it, it should actually show in its structures from top to bottom. And there I would give examples of the General Assembly structures, Synod structures, and maybe many other committees. I think there should be a deliberate effort to let them be seen as multi-racial or cultural.
When we talk about white privilege, we're not talking about being better off or having special treatment. We're talking about the undetectable privilege of not having to face daily microaggressions and judgments based on our ethnicity. Assumptions that people make about where you come from, or how you behave, or what you think. We don't often see outright racist hatred in church. It's more insidious.
I've heard reflections from ministers who say that white ministerial colleagues have come and visited them, seen them, and actually verbalized, I can accept black people in my congregation. I don't accept black people wearing a white collar.
That the denomination is not without its problems to do with racism. There are people who would say that racism does not exist.
Reverend Dr. Tessa Henry Robinson describes herself as a womanist theologian who is committed to seeking justice for minoritized and marginalized groups, particularly women.
And this is a difficult place and a difficult thing to hear, especially when every day the color of your skin when you are not white matters.
When I came into the UK, I wasn't psychologically prepared because there is an assumption out there in the world that the United Kingdom is so civilized, people know this. So I wasn't psychologically prepared for what I would have faced.
Right, because I'm a black woman and how we have a 5 times higher rate of mortality after childbirth, how we are less likely to be referred on to specialists because they don't seem to take our problems as seriously because we are deemed to have a higher pain threshold.
The language, some of the racist language, I didn't know them. I only started to know them when I came here to know what that means.
Which is a lot of the reason why we are not prescribed adequate pain medication, are not prescribed adequate medication, full stop.
I hear from colleagues who arrive in the local pastorate and are told that this member or that member is not coming, has openly said, I'm not going to come when that minister is preaching. I don't understand their accent. I don't know what they're saying. I think what it really amounts to is, I don't accept their ministry.
Well, power dynamics are always there, and the ones that I have experienced myself, especially in this context where I am now, are such that you would have someone confronting you over things that he is alleging that you don't know simply because you are black.
Sarcastic questions being asked to me to say, when did you learn how to drive? As with the assumption that almost thinks that people only drive in the UK, and I would sarcastically respond sometimes to say, no, I learned how to drive by riding a giraffe.
A lot of colleagues, both black colleagues and white colleagues, have shared with me that they are tired. They're tired of the day in, day out struggle. They're not tired of the URC. They're not tired of ministry. They're not tired of Christianity, but they're tired of the struggle. Why have we not arrived as yet?
But things are changing. Together we can listen and we can act.
Right, let me just get my brain in there. There are very many people in the URC who are absolutely committed to the journey for racial justice, both black people and white people.
I have a lot of hope for the future because, our work is based off of Jesus, and I think that he was an advocate of justice.
By the nations looking at you, they will see and desire to serve a God that you are serving. And that is the calling of the church, to be a blessing, to be a role model, to fight and advocate for equality.
Life, flourishing communities. I am so hopeful when I hear those words together.
Well, all I can say is to thank you for even asking me about these questions and sharing this kind of stories. I think they are important, so that if the wider church understands that racism is still there and they hear it from the stories that are being told, it will help the efforts that I've just commended. Those efforts will be assisted because we will see how far we need to go, how much we must do to ensure that racism is not part of our denomination.